All right. Hi. Welcome to the food forest. This is a project that I've been working on for just over a year now. Basically, clearing back all this brush and stuff that you see behind me and trying to turn it into something a little more open, which we've basically done back there, which is kind of crazy considering did all that and that was pretty much all just dead ash. Where's the nearest dead ash? Right there. Any of those trees with grapes growing on them behind me are going to be dead ash trees. A lot of honeysuckle, which there's plenty of honeysuckle there, grapevines, and I mean, what's left is basically a few Scots pines and a couple puddles and right here there's actually some black walnuts, but I'll talk about that in a minute. But so far I'm just kind of trying to turn all of that into a food forest. So basically planting anything that'll grow here. So right now what I have are some black currants, and I'm going to be putting those by some pawpaws and wandering around a little bit. So yeah, I guess let's get to work. This is the Pocahontas elderberry. It's an American elderberry, and last year it was just basically a rooted cutting. It grew a few feet tall by the end of the year, and this year it just exploded. Take a closer look. Flower heads on this are huge. Some of them are already pretty much spent. They're starting to ripen up little berries. They're green now. It's still pumping out some more that are just opening up. These little side flower shoots. And it's like about 8-9 feet tall now. It's crazy. Next to it we have a couple wild native elderberries from just around the creek, and they made a lot smaller flowers. Just a little handful of berries. We'll see if that does better next year. The cup plant is starting to flower. These were seedlings I planted last year, and they're 5 feet tall. They're doing pretty good. They're 4.5 feet tall, or whatever. And in this section I just kind of planted a bunch of the wildflower seedlings that I had left over and I didn't know what to do with. They were still pretty small. You could see the butterfly weed. Was it like Asclepias tuberosa or something? It's really pretty orange, bright orange milkweed. This one's a little more yellow. Some of them I've seen are kind of like a scarlet, almost like red color. I really want to try growing some of those. That'd be cool to add to the garden. And then you got the swamp milkweed. There's a lot of that growing native around here. So I figured I should plant some of that in the garden. These are just about to flower. We also have another elderberry. The Bob Gordon elderberry didn't grow quite as tall this year. Looks like it's going to set some really nice fruit though. I really like these ones. They as they ripen, they seem to kind of droop and hang down. So I think it makes them a little trickier for the birds to get. It's a Bob Gordon flower. And back there we have a bunch of thornless blackberries. I don't really know what variety they are. I got them off of Craigslist from someone who they got rid of them. Oops. They got rid of these blackberries because they basically took over their whole yard. And I see how that could happen now, because they're just huge. Just, I don't know if you can see that. Just starting to ripen up. They're pretty big. It's a solid blackberry. So I just put these in last year. They grew to about like the top of these wires, and then this year they're really bushing out like crazy. So I think next year is going to be a huge year for blackberries. So, yeah, pretty good. Jerusalem artichoke. That's a solid staple. I made the mistake of planting. Well, first I guess I planted one variety that I just bought at was at Whole Foods or something at the grocery store, and those grew well. They clump really nice big tubers. Then I planted another variety that was like a red tubered, sort of like a longer shape, and those ones spread like crazy. So I have to see if I can kind of weed those out of here, because I'd really prefer just to have the nice clumping one and not the one that shoots like 3 feet away from where you plant it. But yeah, this will be a nice clump, considering like 4 or 5 tubers gave me like 4 buckets full of tubers, like I don't even know, like 10-20 gallons of tubers. I think this will be a whole mess this year, so I'm looking forward to that. The currants back in there, just a whole mess of flowers. Verbena, those are a nice wildflower. I have to do some serious weeding in this section. This section got kind of neglected a little more. This section got lots of nice wood chips. These are little Viking aronia plants. These were started from cuttings this year, and they're doing really good. So hopefully in like 2 years I'll have some fruit. I don't really know how fast those grow, but it seems like they're going to produce pretty soon. Just for fun, I grew Musa basju. They're kind of like a cold hardy banana. We'll never get bananas from it up here, and they'd be seedy and probably gross anyways, but they make big leaves. They're kind of cool. This one was like, got a plant maybe like 6 inches tall or something like that in the mail, and now it's like 3 feet tall. It grew pretty quick. It seems to like the heat, but it does, it gets a little droopy when it gets really hot out and sunny, and then it's like more plump looking early in the morning and the afternoon. But it doesn't seem to mind growing right next to a black walnut stump, so I don't know. I don't think bananas and black walnuts evolved together at any point, but there you go. What else do we have? More aronia. The aronia don't really seem to care about growing right next to a black walnut. That one and that one seem just fine. This thing is still sort of alive. It was like half dead, but it kind of sends up a couple like stump sprouts every now and then. But I've been really liking the Joe Pye weed this year. I started these from seed last year too, and they got like a few feet tall and a couple of them flowered, but this year they're really big. And I think I'll end up dividing these up and planting them around in the back. They really like the like heavy soil here, and once you wood chip them or like cover them in wood chips and everything, they just take off. More verbena, some mountain mint. Those smell really good. squash. Lots of squash. Alright, so I want to take a look at what else I've been planting more in the back section of the forest garden. We've got this whole area pretty much cleared now. There's a couple of the dead ash, like big logs laying around on the ground. I might just kind of make them a feature because they're huge. In this section I planted a few, three Bob Gordon elderberries, there, and there. And they got tucked in with a bunch of wood chips and seaweed from the lake. So these will probably be taken off and growing pretty tall this year, and then next year they should produce. And then I have 3 Pocahontas elderberries, which should also get pretty huge. And this section is just kind of like a little clearing from burning a big pile of brush. Up the hill here, we have cornelian cherries planted in these little cages here. They seem to be doing pretty good. Since I've put them in here, they've put on a solid amount of new growth. Like, they were probably like that tall at the beginning of the year, if even, and all of this is new growth here. So I don't know, a few years till I get some fruit, hopefully. Got them nicely mulched, and I'm giving them a lot of like organic matter fertilizer, so I'm hoping that they like that. They seem to be doing pretty good though. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them along this row. So it'll be a nice like yellow flowered alley in the spring. And then tucked into here, we've got another like dozen or so pawpaws. This one's already coming out of the little cage this year. I wasn't really expecting him to do too much because I transplanted him kind of late. And then another bunch of pawpaws in here. These pawpaws are doing good. And then right at the base of the pawpaws, I put some, Titania blackcurrant. They should also be able to handle the somewhat dappled shade in here and still produce pretty well. And I figure the pawpaws will grow up. These will kind of grow out a little bushy. And if I don't like them here, I can just take cuttings or dig them up and move them somewhere else at some point. But yeah, the pawpaw grove is doing pretty good this year. Some of these are already 4 feet tall. Like all this is new growth this year. So they're getting established. They look a little funky being crammed into these tubes though. Their leaves are all pushed up, but they don't seem to be complaining. All right. Now into the clearing. Ooh. There's some deer turds. So the deer are in here. Usually see one when I come out here, but nothing today. This is how low the frog pond has gotten. Like, I don't know if you could tell, there's a good like 2 feet or so of like where the water was, basically all the way up to the surface in the spring. And then through the summer, as it's been kind of dry, it's really lowered. But there's plenty of frogs in here. They all seem happy to have a little wet hole to hide out in, since we didn't really have any water that stayed for really long enough for them to like reproduce in out here. Maybe somewhere way in the back there's sort of like a ditch, and I think they could probably lay eggs in there, but I think they'll be happy for this. Have another little swamp milkweed out here. This one's flowering nice. The deer don't seem to bother it at all, so I might need to plant more of this and more of just whatever wildflowers the deer don't really care for, because it'd be nice to have something kind of pretty that doesn't get munched. I put a maypop, like a hardy passion flower, in this spot. I have a bunch of seedlings, and this one, it's kind of going. It's not too bad for like a first year plant. And the slugs definitely like munching on it though. So I think it'll kind of need to get higher and grow up the cage before it can not get eaten. And over here we have a few sea buckthorns. Let's see how those do. I don't really know what varieties those are. They were just kind of like random suckers that were given to me. And hazelnut. I think that one is the Beast, bred out of Rutgers. And that one's Grand Traverse, which is like a hybrid that has a little bit of Turkish tree hazel in it. So that one will be interesting to look at. The Illinois everbearing mulberry I got it as like a little cutting in the mail. It was probably like a tissue culture plant. And when I put it in the spring, it was like there. I think it was just, like this little stick on the side. And it sent out a shoot. So I put it in this cage and it's grown up. All the side branches that have come out have gotten nibbled by the deer. It grew up the tube, which is kind of floppy. I'm gonna get a stake for it. It grew out the top, and the top, the second it came out, got nipped by a deer. So if you're growing mulberries, definitely need a tree tube for the first couple of years, I think, because the deer like it. I think they're like very desirable. All right, my GoPro got too hot, so I'm not sure where it cut off. But we've got a hazelnut, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4 seaberry seedlings that I grew. They seem to be doing pretty good. Like, what is that, 3 feet tall right now? So hopefully they'll flower in like 2 years or something. I'm not really sure what to expect with those though. This section right here along the trail, I tried to get them as straight as I could. They're grapes. We have mostly like American hybrid varieties, or like fully American grapes. So they shouldn't get too many disease issues. I mean, right now they're already kind of coming up, and I mean, that's like 4 feet tall, 5 feet tall. They're coming out of the tree tubes, so I will probably have to put in a trellis next year and get them like trained on the wire. But if I can just turn them into like big vertical stems this year, I'd be happy with that. And I bought one of them, but the other ones I just rooted from cuttings. So it's kind of cool what you can do in a year. Then in this area, we have a bunch of Titan seaberry females and then 1 seaberry male. So that should be able to pollinate this bunch in here. We also have mulberry, and another row of like 5 cornelian cherries. This whole area is all the hazelnuts that I showed in the earlier video. They're looking pretty good. They're coming out of the tubes in a lot of cases. This one's coming out of the tube. They're not doing too bad. I'd like them to kind of turn in, I don't know, I kind of want to train them as like multi-stemmed, but some of the bigger ones that I ordered, I might as well just train them into trees. And maybe I'll divide the suckers if they seem to do good. But yeah, a little hazelnut, a little aronia, a little hazelnut, another aronia. Should be doing pretty good. I'm gonna get a brush mower for all of the little ash suckers that are coming up in this area, because this whole section was kind of like that like 2 years ago, so it's kind of been a little bit of an effort to keep all this down. But yeah, so far so good. I can't really complain about how anything's done this year. Like, each of these hazelnuts got tucked in with a big, like, gross mound of seaweed. And once it smells horrible right now, but that stuff will rot down, be like a really good organic compost fertilizer for them. And all the growth looks really dark green and healthy, so yeah, I think it's working. Yay. Let's see what else there is to look at. So in this tree tube we have a Kokuso mulberry, and it's got the mound, wood chips, seaweed combo. I think that's going to be my signature now. And you could tell it's just like busting to try to get out of here, but it's got a nice healthy growth tip. And yeah, probably honestly like a couple weeks it'll be trying to come out of the tube, just with how much heat and sun we've been getting. So hopefully we'll get a couple little berries next year. When I rooted this from a cutting, the original cutting is somewhere down here. Yeah, it was just like a 6-inch or 8-inch cutting. So it rooted, and that's the tip there of the cutting. Some of it's like that much of it's underground. And then all of this is new growth from like early spring, late winter. That's kind of wild. Another thing I'm doing is I'm setting a bunch of these little spots up, which are just some different varieties of thornless blackberry. This one's Loch Ness. Just have like a big mound of wood chips. Put in a little plant this spring. Surrounded it with some like logs because we have so many extras laying around everywhere. And put some deer netting around them because they seem to like them. And they're doing pretty good. I'd like to make just like a big wall of them around here. So I'll probably let these plants grow, like tip layer them, see how they do. But so far, they're doing pretty good. We'll see how they handle the winters though, because I think different blackberry varieties can be kind of iffy. We're up in zone 6, so last winter was pretty mild, but we can get some nasty ones, so we'll see how that goes. Got a tiny chestnut in there, another blackberry, and another chestnut. That tube kind of flopped, but it's not that tall yet. When you come over into the brush line, there's actually a bunch of these wild blackberries, and they are pretty good. They're just starting to ripen up. It's actually a pretty good size. So I'm probably gonna be trying to get back in there and pick some soon. But I also have the big thornless ones ripening up, so those are a little less effort. Along this side here, we have a bunch of firs and spruces that I planted. It's like a balsam fir and some Norway spruces. I'm gonna try to make kind of like just a big green wall between our thing going on here and then the neighbor's place, because why not? It also should help with like the winter winds coming through their open field, so keep all of my babies nice and protected. So yeah, I think that's about it for now, unless I think of something else to show you along the way back.